Excuse me, sir. Okay. Read that then. Ready to start?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon. It is April the 13th. It's 4 o'clock. And I would like to call the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting to order. And I would also like to acknowledge that the press and the public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The first item on the agenda is approval of the previous meeting's minutes. That meeting was held on March 9th, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I move the minutes be approved as written.
A second.
Okay, and it looks like we have no citizen comments. I don't.
We need a vote.
Oh, sorry.
That's
You're
okay.
right. Gosh. Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Opposed? Nay. Okay. All right, so the citizen comments, it looks like we do not have anybody here to make comments for our meeting, and so we will move directly into old business. The first item under old business is water quality. And I believe that Doug was going to talk about the goals for the Water Quality Subcommittee, but I know that he was not able to be here for this meeting. So Douglas, did you want to provide us with an update on water quality testing?
A quick update on that. We have been in meetings, and it's probably now been several months since we've met with Charleston Waterkeepers about the possibility of them doing some of the testing for us. They're already sampling weekly in certain ditches that they're watching, and they have offered if we could get them water samples by a certain day of the week, they would be willing to kind of fold our water into their water samples and have the testing done and coordinate with that. So we had those discussions. The group has been pretty actively talking with DHEC through Jonathan on what DHEC is doing, what they're seeing, what their monitoring is showing. And I do think that Jonathan would be best to speak to kind of what that's showing, and maybe, it may be that I guess I don't want to speak for him, but it may be that as a group we want to look at alternatives to what we're considering doing with Charleston Waterkeepers. So I think that's an active conversation, and Jonathan really is taking the lead at getting information through his contacts at DHEC that I think will be useful for the group. So in terms of this water testing, I would say let's hold that discussion for a deeper conversation with Jonathan when he's here. On kind of related news, I will say that the city has, and it was really through introduction with Belvin to the sustainability coordinator with the city of Charleston and y'all's work with the composting program, that we have also begun work to partner on the city of Charleston's Adopt a Drain program. Matt and the city have been sharing mapping information and kind of the details of that program. And we have a goal and a plan to roll out this Adopt a Drain program at, we're really going to start pushing it at the Disaster Expo, and I should have that date, but it's coming up. And what it is, and for those of you that aren't familiar with it, is you kind of like the Adopt a Highway program, you try to get community participation in just cleaning drainage inlets. So it's not, their program is not dealing with ditches or really pipes or anything of that nature, but it's getting the debris and leaves and the area around the inlets clean. And just asking for either assistance physically cleaning them. Some people they know of a drain down the road from their house that they would like it to be clean, but they feel awkward kind of going down in front of somebody else's house and physically raking in front of their house. And it's kind of a way to formalize that process and that program. So it would also it would include physically cleaning things if the member is agreeable and willing to do that, or it could just be reporting the condition, kind of being the city's contact for when a part of the drainage system needs attention. They could just send an email or pictures or whatever it is to provide us with information. So that's the date, May 26th. That's kind of our goal to have. I'm sorry, May 16th. I'm sorry, to have the mapping done, have the drains available for adoption, and hopefully start getting people signed up to do that. So that would be, I guess, associated with the water quality group.
So when you say the inlets, are you talking about the street drains?
Yes. So there is a weird set of guidelines that the drains had to fit into to be suitable for the program. Mm-hmm. They did not want to do it on any DOT roads. So if it's in a DOT road, I guess it's for the concern that the DOT doesn't want people working on their system. And it doesn't include, like I said, ditches or pipes. So that really leaves those great inlets that are off of a roadway. And we mapped them, and maybe there's 70, 80 on the island. They're not a tremendous, when you look at all of our drainage infrastructure, this is kind of,
I think there's about 80 and there's another 30 curb inlets.
so maybe 100 places that are going to be made available for adoption. Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, it's not, in the scale of our system, it's a very small portion. But we think, beyond anything, it would be good to just raise awareness of, if you see leaves and things going into the drainage system, it benefits the community to get them out of that system and not let them kind of clog up and build up in the system.
Madam Chair, I don't know if this would work, but it strikes me that same thing. While we're getting volunteers to help with clean drains, I'm wondering if we can piggyback onto that, picking up the litter in their neighborhood. We've talked about having captains for the neighborhood for litter. It just seems like it would be an easy ask. We're not asking them to make deposits every week or anything. It would be on a volunteer basis. If it worked out, those would fit. Is that what you were going to?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, yes.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking about, when you were talking, Douglas, I know that my neighbors have across the street neighbors, they have a yard service who does their yard work, puts things in the bag, and then they sit the bags right in front of the drain. And then, so sometimes the bags fall over, sometimes there's like other debris that's there as well. I've been cleaning drains for like 10 years on my street, so this is this is right up my alley. I volunteer.
I think yours are going to be available.
Yeah, okay, sign me up.
Yeah.
So, but I think just having an aware, people don't really think about
That's
stuff
correct.
like that. They're not trying to be difficult, but they just don't have an awareness. This is a family with 3 young children. They don't have an awareness of that this could be a problem.
And I think a lot of people, neighbors, residents on the island think somebody else is going to do it. Whether it's cleaning the drains or picking up trash or, making sure the bags of trash are picked up. I think the awareness, we were talking with Chandra earlier, this is something that I think would
Another
help.
thing that it would be good for public education is to tell people that Public Works does not want the leaves and branches mixed with construction debris and regular trash and other things.
Right.
Somebody walks by and they just throw something on the leaf bag, and then the Public Works doesn't want to mix that. It's got to be compostable for Public Works to pick it up
Right.
with the cat and the pickup truck or the dump truck. And that, I always pull things out and throw them in another place,
other
or
pile,
just
yeah.
separate them. but most people don't seem to be aware of that.
So Sandy, I do think that, we will at least, so this program specifically is it's through the city, and it has, as I said, kind of rigorous rules for who can adopt what and what's available to adopt. But if nothing more, it will create a kind of database of people in the neighborhood willing to kind of physically work. So I think it is a very natural, once we have that list of volunteers, to kind of build off of that however we see fit with, cleaning up the neighborhood, getting the word out. I know the recycling people look for people who are willing to put a sign in their yards to inform the neighborhood. So I do think it'll start kind of giving us a list of involved neighbors in each part of the island. So I think it would be
Would
good.
this be something as background for an article in Island Eye to ask people to volunteer, explain what it is, or other than the expo, how do you envision we'll be getting the volunteers?
I think our full effort now is just having the program developed and having it ready for the expo. I think once it's developed and you all have, I think we would lean on Chandra to advise on how to get the word out. Okay. But I do think we would do it through, social media, publicity. Certainly, I think newspaper posts, website posts would help to get that word out. Again, we're going to have a pretty limited. I think there's only going to be maybe 100 drains available so I guess I would hope that in pretty quick order all 100 would be adopted. You don't think? Do you think it'll take a
I
while?
hope so too. That would be awesome.
So we'll see. We'll just see how it
Hey,
progresses.
you only have 98.
Yeah. See, we already have two already
I got
going.
two.
Yeah.
I got 2 drains.
Oh, my husband does one or two.
See? Yeah.
My neighborhood doesn't have drains.
Was there anything else that,
Belvin,
any other
you're the
updates?
only remaining.
I am the only surviving water guy.
Water guy. Is there anything else that
Just
we've
for
been?
tonight.
I mean, like you said, Jonathan is engaging with DHEC. I don't want to speak for him either. But that's the next step, as far as I can tell, is because you did the sampling. You got it's over the reading levels
Yeah.
for our test. So I think we're just navigating from there. Jonathan's the guy who's best equipped to work with DHEC on that. So yeah, I don't have any additions, I don't think.
okay. Climate action. Belvin, did you want to speak
Yeah,
about
so there are two things I want to discuss about climate action. And I think one is maybe a more low-hanging fruit, and the other is more, let's look at this over the coming months. The low-hanging fruit I want to talk about is that James Island, the town of James Island, I believe it was a month and a half ago, had the debut of solar panels on 2 of their municipal buildings, on Town Hall and on the Art and Culture Center across the street. It's a low-lift thing, but it's the sort of thing that signals to the community that this is something that's worth pursuing, and it saves energy. I mean, it will, over time, pay for itself. So I think that's a pretty straightforward and concrete thing that Isle of Palms could pursue, is solar panels on municipal buildings. Garrett Milliken is the council member on James Island who spearheaded this. He would be more than happy to give us any and all information that we would want in terms of who they worked with, how the process went for them. So we have a resource available if we do want to pursue solar panels on municipal buildings. There's City Hall right here. We could see the feasibility of just adding solar panels. The police building down the street. So there's some good possibilities here, I think. So I would put that as just a very straightforward, right in front of us, climate action piece. The other one I want to raise is that the town of Mount Pleasant passed a low-impact development ordinance about a month ago. And the way it works is that it basically uses a point system to incentivize all sorts of green construction practices, both in the buildings themselves and in the lawn area around them. So you get points for rain gardens. You get points for permeable sidewalks and driveways. You get points for water retention. Basically, everything that would cause low impact development to happen is accounted for in this program. I want to do some research on talking with some experts in green building practices on like, what do you think of this and how do you think this would apply to other municipalities? Because I don't know if we want to just copy wholesale what Mount Pleasant did. I want to know more about A, how it works in the coming months, because it's a very new ordinance, and B, what local experts think about how this would apply to a smaller municipality like Isle of Palms. But a low impact development ordinance that incentivizes green building practices and green lawn practices, I think would be really helpful from a climate perspective.
The point system, is there a reward for accumulating a certain number of points?
Yeah.
Or is there a minimum that every development must achieve?
I believe it's incentive-based, and most places in the Low Country look at incentive-based green building
Would that
practices.
be lower tax?
So
on
it's a few
property,
things. It can
or-
accelerate the approval process. I don't believe they have a build higher option, but that is an option that, there are lots of knobs and widgets that you can use to appeal to developers. And they have a list. And I can share the ordinance through email, just the ordinance as it passed. And y'all can look through it.
I'd like to see it.
Yeah, but basically it incentivizes through some perks for developers that make the process easier or faster or more affordable for them, based on the amount of green building practices they put into place.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question about, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but with regards to solar panels,
Yes.
Are there any risk for like losing these panels during adverse weather events like a hurricane?
Oh, it's not impossible. I mean, if the roof comes
Yeah.
off and solar panels are attached, then
Right, but would it be, it's not, I wouldn't anticipate that it would be something that would make it more likely to have a roof down
Adverse,
problems or have any kind of adverse impact?
no, I wouldn't think so. And if anything, there's a resiliency aspect of solar panels when you think about the possibility of power outages. One thing that I'm really intrigued by, New Orleans has sort of this grassroots program where there are certain buildings on high ground that are set up with solar panels. And the idea is that in case of an outage, in case of a severe weather event outage, it can provide some power to surrounding neighborhoods. So I would say, if anything, it's a good thing to have in case of extreme weather.
Oh, that's a nice incentive to have power in extreme weather. Yeah.
Belvin, I don't know, and I would have to refresh my memory on how this worked, but I recall the city analyzing solar panels, and it's probably 10 or 15 years ago at this point. And at the time, there was an alternative given to the city to kind of participate in a farm.
Right.
Where instead of putting the panels directly on our building, we kind of agreed to a fund that, as I understood it, kind of paid for the panels to be in a professionally managed and safe and solar kind of perfect orientation. And then in exchange for doing that, we would get the same offsetting cost to our electric bill that would have applied had we applied them to the building. I can't remember all the details about that, but are you aware of that being
So
a methodology?
Those
that-
exist for sure. I mean, it's a
and
valid way
I
to
think the city did that.
Okay, well, that's good.
Years ago, but you get, I think it's now showing up as kind of a credit on our electric bill for the city that we have solar panels somewhere that are lowering our expense. And I don't know if that's the same, kind of environmentally, if that's an
So in many ways it is.
proposition.
So the reasons that you want it on the building proper, because it is harnessing energy, like we are contributing to a clean energy source, regardless of where the solar panels are. I would say the main reasons to have it on the building are, one, visibility, so it sort of has a leadership
sends the
effect in the
message
community. Yeah. And hopefully, and that's a big role that local government can play. It's like this leadership role. And the other being, like I said, well, I work with Dominion on the details, but I'm personally intrigued by that resilience aspect of having solar in terms of, in case of a power outage, we can have some sort of, we can make it our own. That's not a possibility with other power sources.
How can we learn more about what's the status right now with the Isle of Palms and solar, if there's any involvement, or maybe that was something that has expired? Because I agree with you. I think, especially when we have sun most of the time, it's sort of like, yeah, we should do this. And they've come down so much in cost, I know, in the last
Right, the technology
few
has come
years, too.
very, very far in the past 10 years, let alone the past few years. I would also love to, I guess, know more about what the city did with, I assume, Dominion.
Well, it
10 or
was
so
so
years
long ago,
ago.
it would have been SC&G.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I can at least find out what transpired back then and what our status is in terms of, I mean, it sounds like it's maybe not a moot point, but it could be a separate, this would be a separate.
At the very least, it shows that council or whoever approved it at one
Yes.
point was interested
Yeah.
enough that it might make it ripe for bringing it
Yeah.
forth again.
And I guess my proposal would be to get information from Councilman Milliken on James Island. I just wanted to share it on the cost, who they worked with, and the process, just anything he can share to make the process easier. And then perhaps if that goes to the relevant people, they can have discussion in future meetings about adopting it and recommend to council.
Are you in contact with him?
Yes.
You mind?
Yeah, I'd be happy
You could reach
to.
out to him and.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you would do that, that would be great.
Awesome.
And the low impact ordinance.
Yeah,
Get
I'll
a copy
send
of
the
that.
document to y'all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Belvin. Mary, did you want to speak about wildlife? Mary or
What's the latest
Deb?
on the turtle signs? And I have a couple of things to say after that.
I think they're all up. Yeah,
How many?
I think there's 50, 51, 57.
I think it's either 53 or 57. I don't think we did the ones in 56 and 57 because I was involved in.
That's great. We want to thank the
Good
city so
work.
much for
That
doing
was
that.
fast.
And
I
it
think that
got
was
done
good.
quickly in time
Yeah.
for the season, too. I'd like to say that Debbie and I went to the Coyote Information meeting a couple of months ago at the rec center, and as usual, Jay Butfolowski of SCDNR did a really good job of educating people about coyotes, how you can't just go out and shoot them all, because that makes things worse. So the public seemed pretty on board with what his information was. And the police were there. They offered those of us on the turtle team some things to put on nests, like red eyes that flash and scare.
Yeah.
Of course, we know that coyotes get used to things, and it only works for a few weeks, so I don't know if it's really worth the trouble. But anyway, that was a good meeting, and I'm glad we went. Also, the rack cards that this committee, we put out, we've been using them at the street fairs. Also, there are some upstairs at City Hall for people about shorebirds and turtles, and with phone numbers and lots of good information. Turtle Team will also be at the Hurricane Expo.
Oh, good.
And we'll be giving these out there too, so we're looking forward to that. That's about all I have on wildlife. Debbie, you have anything
Yeah,
else?
I don't really have anything to add, Mary.
Okay.
All right, thank you
Great.
both. So I can start us off with the, Douglas, you might want to start us off with the litter update, because I know that you were in contact with, or attempting to contact Elizabeth Fisher, and it sounded like the last time we communicated that you had not been able to get in touch with her.
Yeah,
Is
so
that-
she committed, so I told her maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago that we wanted her to do kind of a midpoint update. She agreed happily to do that. I reached out, and that was roughly going to fall at this meeting. I reached out to her last week to ask her if this meeting she would be prepared to do that. I got an immediate out of the office response, and it indicated she wouldn't be back in time for this meeting, and I haven't heard back yet, but I got the auto reply. So I do expect that she would be ready to give that update at our May meeting.
Any other updates for us?
The only other thing was the composting workshop. Matt and the Smart Recycling Group have established that workshop for the 25th, April 25th at 4? It's like 5, okay.
Yeah, 5.
And they are asking for RSVP to attend. Because
Right.
they signed up today.
You get
Apparently, they're going to give out
a ticket,
compost
a
bucket
ticket for
everybody, too.
Eventbrite. Yeah, a free
Matt,
compost bucket.
talk into the,
Oh, sorry.
it seems like there's
There was
intentionally kind of a limited seating capacity.
Yeah, I think it was already at 25 as of last week, so, of 50.
I think Chandra said that they're half full already.
it's- yeah,
Those
okay.
people have reservations and tickets for Eventbrite, which is where you have to do it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So
So
they
we-
can take 50 or
Yes.
25? 50 is the number that
50 is the
they-
total, right?
Total number, okay.
So I do anticipate if the limit is 50 per session, we would hope that a lot more than 50 would be participating in the program. So we'll just talk with them as to how to get everybody else signed up that wants to be signed up and have access. So, and they've been good to work with. And like I said, it has led to this Adopt a Drain program, which we're excited about both of those opportunities.
So will we be hearing about any additional sessions based upon interest? Is that,
I would expect so.
Okay.
That'd be how I think we would handle it. Once we get to 50, we would start either a new sign up or a new session or whatever would come next.
okay, good.
So is this the correct date? Is it set for April 25th?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Has it been the Island Eye that there is a compost drop-off program now and all that?
I don't think so.
remember seeing
Not that I'm aware of. I think that they did not want, I think they wanted to publicize this as the first step. They didn't
Gotcha.
want to encourage, people to just start showing up. So I think they want this to be the first.
That makes sense.
First step of getting access to the bins. Some people are using them already. I'm not sure how we're
Very
getting.
little bit, yeah.
We're getting like half can reports, but
They got the combination.
so somehow they got the combination.
Well, you can sign up online, I think, right? The link's
I
up
think you
there.
have to.
Yeah.
Well, I guess can you?
Yeah, there's like a 10-minute thing you have to go through, but then you're
Oh,
signed
okay. You
up.
can do it all
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Those
that's
are
how they're doing
enthusiastic
it.
people.
That's good.
Yeah, that's great.
And I did want to, while we have Chandra, and I didn't know if the group wanted to, we've kind of been talking about things for her to publicize in a general sense. We kind of have her here tonight. I don't know if there would be specific wish lists from the group or things that you want to talk about in terms of publicity, but I think now would be a good time if there are ideas that you all would like to give her for content. I think we have somebody willing and able and looking for content. So
I was just wondering if we could talk about that under new business. Would that be okay?
we could, yeah. I don't.
Okay. Chandra, do you need to leave? Would it be
She would
better?
need to. I don't know.
I think you're under new business, aren't you?
No, I had some things I wanted to report on under litter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to do that?
Finish it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
it shouldn't take too long.
Okay.
Okay. So most of the things that I wanted to report on are related to an email that I received from Susan Smith. And I think that also went to Linda and to you, Douglas. And in that email, she had a couple of suggestions that I thought were worth considering. And one in particular is called Fill a Bag, or otherwise known as FAB. And Douglas, I don't know if you could pull it up on your computer so that you can see the
Her email or
the
the
website. The website.
The website.
It's called Fill a Bag. But while we're doing that, it's actually not a bag. It is a bucket, and this is sort of an additional way of collecting litter on the beach, using a sort of self-directed method. Maybe that somebody is here for a family beach vacation, and you get your kids together, and everybody grabs one of these buckets and they put litter in the bucket. So these are the Amy, scroll back down where the stand was. So this is an example of what it looks like. This is kind of shaped like a, kind of a triangular sides to it, and it has some hooks for the buckets. So what people can do is they can get a bucket, and then they can, collect trash and then empty the bucket. So in order to participate in this program, you have to basically select a location that you think would be a good location for this. And, it might be something like, 42nd Street Beach Access or 25th Street Beach Access. And you have to position the buckets close to a trash receptacle, so they have to be within 5 to 10 feet of a receptacle. The Fill-A-Bag people will provide you with the station. They give you 4 buckets. They give you stickers that you see on the buckets. They have, support by phone or text or email or what have you. And for the island, we would have to provide the trash receptacle, which we already have. And that trash would have to be emptied, would have to be removed, which we already do. And then we would have to replace the buckets when the buckets got broken or the buckets wore out. And then just maintaining the station. Like if there was a problem with the station, if it broke or something like that, maintaining the station.
Would they construct the structure for the, yeah, okay, sorry.
That was what I read. I mean, that was how I read it, is that they provide you with everything you need to initiate the project. And then, really what you have to do as a municipality would be to, empty the trash cans like we already do. So it kind of goes through it there, what's required and that sort of thing. But this was a suggestion that was made by Susan Smith. I thought it was a good suggestion. I mean, primarily their focus right now with the beach cleanups are in that commercial area. And when I've participated in those, we've gone down as far as like 25th, but really haven't gone any further than that. So really we're in a very specific area. So this might be another possibility. So if people are not able to come on a Monday afternoon or whenever the designated day is for the cleanup, this would be something people could do on their own. It was just a thought. So I thought it looked pretty interesting to me. The station does not have to be. It doesn't have to be like it's installed. The way that they install it is they use some bags. You could use bags of sand to secure the base of the station. I think that's what they did in their picture. So I just wanted to bring that up.
So it has kind of there's that one that's the big one, and then there's just a single post with the
Right.
eggs
So
on.
there are different options that you could choose from. As far
And the
as what
thought
might,
would be that maybe we during busy seasons have them kind of at our most prevalent beach accesses, or are we thinking year-round?
well, I think probably the time when they would be most beneficial is during our busy season.
We kind of pick like 3, 4, so we have it at the,
So right now, we have pretty good coverage
at
in the commercial area.
so kind of 25th to,
So like 20, and so I'm thinking about some of the common beach accesses that I see on my end of the island are 25th. I think it's 42nd.
yeah, that's a big one.
That's a big one, and it's also it's one that's accessible.
I feel like
to-
53rd is a
53rd is vehicle.
emergency.
Yeah, so just thinking about, and I don't know if there are other places up around Ocean.
Fifth, would that be, I guess Ninth is so close to the commercial district, that would Fifth be the next kind of logical big
That's
one?
the only other one at the south end after.
And I think
after
that's that's the one where we're doing the surfing lessons too, correct?
Somewhere right in there, yeah, it's
Yeah,
Fifth,
I was thinking that was
Sixth.
the beach access that we were using for surfing lessons.
And I guess Breach Inlet.
Yeah, Beach Inlet, yeah.
One of the most appealing things about this idea, in addition to the obvious of keeping the beach cleaner, is getting more coverage to encourage people to pick up beach litter, make it easy.
Right.
And again, reinforce our desire to be seen as a environmentally forward community. So how do we go forward with this?
So I guess I could foresee, if we're already doing the trash collection, so I think if we put a post next to an existing bin, and I've just going from one end to the other, Fifth, or Breach Inlet, Fifth, 25th, 42nd, 53rd. So if we just started with those five, installed a post, I don't think they would cost more than $100 a piece.
I don't think that we have to pay for them. I think we have to pay to.
For the buckets? So,
Well, the buckets, you get some buckets to start with, but you have to pay for any replacement buckets. And
oh, replacement if they go
so,
lost.
they're not going to last
Forever. Yeah.
forever. They might last a year or
They
something
might
like
get
that.
shot up.
Do people vandalize them on places that have them now? Is there a
I
problem with
haven't
that?
seen anything to that
Yeah.
that would, I mean,
Or I guess,
who knows?
and I don't know, high winds if they sling off
Yeah,
the.
if a hurricane was coming, I wonder if you could remove them.
Oh, I would think you would probably would want to do that. So, Amy, could you scroll back down again, just to, up, sorry. I gave you the wrong.
I would also think that if there were any costs,
So
if they'll
there's-
only do two, for example, I
Okay.
think Palmetto Pride would probably give us a
Yeah.
grant to pursue this.
And if you go, Amy, if you go down one, you can see the hooks on the post a little bit better. And maybe could, up. I think it's the next picture down. So this one has has a dowel.
Yeah, that's the one. So we do have one at the public restrooms now.
Oh, do we? Uh-huh,
Yeah.
yeah.
There.
Okay.
I don't think it's, I think that I don't think it's kind of from this group. I think it's the same thing. It's just not branded with the fill a bag. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if, I would think that with as much kind of information as we like to put out, that we would probably put just our own sign. I think Robert could make that and,
Fill a bucket.
yeah.
So-
Yeah, I'm not
put
sure
the
why
beach
they
rules.
say bag when it's really a bucket that you're filling. It's still fab. I don't know if that is, copyright protected or anything like that.
Probably. They have the website domain fill bag, so.
Yeah, I think we would just put a similar structure, probably with a Isle of Palms, or maybe a turtle type sign of the beach rules. Or we could be,
Call it the bucket brigade, call it something different.
So
It's a bucket.
so
if you
let
would
us-
like, I could find out whether or not, so you're looking at maybe doing, trying to
I'm kinda
copy that
thinking-
if it's not copyrighted itself.
That's showing one at Fort Moultrie and at
Yeah.
Front Beach here.
Says Front Beach.
Yeah.
So I think the one, I believe the one that is at Front Beach is one that Susan got from this company.
From this group, it is, so it's
Yeah,
from this group.
yeah,
I guess
because
that's why
they
it's
do
on.
put locations on a map along the,
There it is on the map.
Yeah.
yeah.
So we want to pursue, I get,
So I'm guessing that it probably is something that is copyrighted.
well, and if they're giving some kind of service through it, then there's no reason not to, I guess,
To
if
go
they're
with them.
locating them on a map or something for us that, let us talk about the idea of adding
Mm-hmm.
5 at those locations,
Okay.
and we'll just see what it would cost,
People
how.
use that one?
I think it's well used. We could, Amy, you're saying it is?
Yes, the buckets are gross. You can tell that there's also that kitty thing where they put the toys.
Yeah.
Toys.
Behind the restrooms, we put those Adirondack chairs, that's where Susan and them meet for their meeting, so there's the thing with all the buckets on it. There were 4 buckets the other day, and then there's all the toys that people can recycle into the toy bin right there behind the restrooms. And they all look people were getting toys, people were putting toys in, someone had a bucket, someone's put a bucket back, so it looked like it was very buzzy.
Good, great, nice.
Could be a great family beach activity.
Yeah. Yeah. So let us report back on what that would take and if there are any issues kind of operationally with doing that. I can't think of any. Only thing I can think of is, they're blowing off, they're creating issues. I do know the one at the front beach is pretty well back from the beach. So it's not kind of out in the wind or on the beach proper.
Yeah, that would be my concern, but I did notice on the dowels, on that post, there was like a hook, so maybe
It
attach
kinda
a
is
hook
latched,
to
yeah.
the buckets.
Oh, yeah.
The
Right.
recycle.
Because, yeah, I would think they would just get blown off, even on a regular day.
All right, well, does that sound good? 5, kind of
Oh,
strategically?
I think that'd be fabulous, yeah.
Should we
I
s-
think potentially when it said 25th and then 42nd, maybe, the 30th beach access is.
34A, we
very-
just did a beautiful
There you go,
boardwalk there.
34A, something in between.
In between the
because,
two?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
thought-
that's
I
the
wonder,
new
I have
handicap.
53rd, what do you think? Is that so far down? That may be,
I don't know.
I hear that there's a lot of trash on the beach around 55th,
okay,
so it might be a good place to have it.
okay. All right.
I don't know how much cleanup is actually done around that sort of hotel area and
Oh, so 55th would be so I know
Closer to that.
57th is a big one from the Wild
right.
Dunes, from the back of the
Several beach
hotel.
houses,
Yeah,
Yeah.
now that's where they have their boardwalk
Yes.
coming out. That might be better than 53rd.
You're kind of getting out of
Yeah.
what the
A
public.
lot of people pass by there, coming out
57th.
of Wild Dunes.
All right.
And 57th. They keep changing those numbers on those signs, though, so I'm not sure what it is now.
so, I would trust your judgment on, where it would be the best places to
Okay.
put those, but
And-
I think having something that is in close proximity to Wild Dunes might be nice to
Yep,
have,
okay.
yeah.
So maybe 57th, 55th, 57th. And maybe between the Public Works folks and the Wild Dunes Community Association, they can advise on which of those would be best.
Would it make sense, I know that proximity has already been mentioned, but the Citadel Beach Club to ask them? Or
They don't have public beach accesses near
Well,
them.
but they have a lot of traffic during the season.
So just if
of
they wanted to
use.
do it on their own?
I guess, but it seems like, cadets, that's something that would appeal to them too. I don't want it, again, I don't want the beach to be cluttered with things that are trying to unclutter it. I just wonder if,
Is that where the toy box is? At the beach house?
No, she's saying the Citadel
The
Beach
Citadel
Club.
Beach
Citadel.
Club.
I was thinking of
47th
the
and
property
48.
owner.
Yeah.
yeah,
Beach house,
around,
never mind.
it's around 50th.
Yeah.
I just wondered if, because it seems like every time I go down there, there's always a lot of people using, I guess they're Citadel-related people, but
Yeah. I think-
Problem is, those are private streets. There's no beach access until you get to 49th. You know, there's no beach path
Right.
near the Citadel Beach House.
I don't know if there's a
people can't walk
receptacle
out there.
there, but,
Yeah.
you know, it would be a targeted audience, but I think there's a lot of traffic.
I think
From
that
the Citadel.
the Citadel Beach House, I see it being used for a lot of events, like
Yes.
weddings and receptions and things like that. So I don't know if that would,
But not
I'm-
I just thought
but
about it.
not, but not so much families.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it's utilized by the cadets.
Let me
I don't have
get
any idea about that.
an idea from Public Works, kind of where the cans are most heavily utilized. That probably is a good indicator of where
Good idea.
trash is accumulating. And I'll, let us just kind of look at it and analyze it, and we'll report back
Okay.
next month.
One other thing I wanted to ask about, and this is something that Susan had also mentioned in her email to us, and that was about garbage cans with lids, or obtaining garbage cans with lids. I think that one of the things that they have observed is that sometimes birds will come and they'll lift things from the garbage cans, and then they drop them in the parking lot when they realize it's not anything they want to eat. I've seen that also with rats. I've seen rats get stuff out of garbage cans and, you know, that kind of thing. And so in the national parks, they usually have garbage cans that have some type of lid on them. So I don't know if in areas where you have a lot of food waste or wrappers and things like that, if that's something that we might want to consider
Yeah, so,
as a.
so I do know that lids, we have wanted to do lids for years, and that there is something with our equipment
Oh,
that makes it
Difficult.
challenging. And I think it's just the hopper, the device that we use to service those cans is very specifically kind of a round.
right.
So I
yeah.
know there's an operational challenge to
Oh,
that,
okay,
and we have
okay.
wanted to do it, and it's been kind of insurmountable. But let me check into that, and I'll just report back on
Okay.
what that issue is, and I just know that we couldn't get around it or through it previously, but I'll look back into it and report back on what
Okay.
that issue is.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is, or to ask about, or maybe have you ask about, Douglas, is whether or not we have any interest in purchasing any additional butt canisters for cigarette litter. I know we started off with, what,
Seems like
5 or
we have-
6?
yeah.
Something like that?
I hear they're well utilized. I know the one at and I think it was a few key people that were contributing to butts on the ground in the marina are using the can, and there was an area there that was awful, and it's still not great, but it's much better than it was. So I know
Right.
that
Yeah.
they have been well utilized, and are you thinking additional areas or more of them?
Additional areas, or maybe additional canisters in areas where there's high utilization or lots of potential smokers. It seems like around the marina store and maybe that restaurant area. I don't know about the waterfront park. I haven't been down there recently. So I don't know if that's an area that's, would benefit from something like that. I do know, I had a conversation with the people who make the butt canisters recently, and I do know that they've made them smaller because they didn't want to increase the price, and the price of aluminum has gone up, and so instead of increasing the price, they made the butt canisters smaller. So the company that whose information I gave you originally is, I think these canisters now only hold 250 butts. So
I think that I do think that ours that we purchased were smaller than the ones that you would, but but it hasn't, they're not overflowing yet.
Right,
I mean, they're
yeah.
kind of half full, so the size at the frequency that we're changing them has not been a problem.
Yeah, and I did ask them if they would hold, if they were large enough for cigars, and apparently they are, so.
Well, you have, so Marina Store and Restaurant, is that, I will say those are out of they're not, they're under lease. So that would be the judgment of the leaseholders. When they're on city proper property, we can obviously control it, which that community dock where the one's placed down there was city property. But I can always make the suggestion. I haven't noticed, I can tell you that in the city's portion, it was just awful for whatever reason. You go right there to where you'd go into the dock and there were 50, 60 cigarette butts right on the ground there. I haven't noticed it in other locations, but I haven't necessarily been looking for it. Has it been noticed that it's problematic in those other spots?
I think that in one of the things Susan mentioned in her email is that she had noticed a lot of litter there, and that some of the employees of the Islander 71 were picking up trash. So I don't know if it was all cigarette butts or other things, but because of its the proximity to the water, it might be a good spot.
Okay.
Right now, the parking lot is pretty well closed off. I had to go pick up
Yeah.
a dead turtle from the fuel dock, and you couldn't even get into the parking lot.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know if that, I'm sure that affects where the cigarette butts are being put and the quantity, since people can't get in there.
I don't know. I have an observation, and it doesn't mean anything and probably doesn't contribute, but I just thought you guys would find it interesting, as I did. I spent a couple of weeks in South Miami and was walking dogs every day through different neighborhoods. I did not see a single cigarette butt anywhere I went there. And it just jumped out at me because it was so unusual.
Whoa.
I mean, nowhere. Anyway, like I said, it doesn't really mean anything, but what are they doing that we're not? And this is a heavily populated area.
Yay, South Carolina.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's just.
Yeah, I think that's all that I had, Douglas.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything? Linda, do you have anything for litter?
I think you've covered it.
Okay. Moving on to new business, the first item is to discuss takeaways from the Beach Advocates Conference, and I noticed that Mary has some things that she wanted to share.
I wrote down a few things that I noticed about the meeting. This was the 9th meeting, and in Wild Dunes, not the 9th meeting in Wild Dunes, but it was their 9th meeting, and it was the last 2 days of January and the first day of February. So seems like a long time ago, and most of this committee attended. We were proud of that. And of course, these were advocates for preservation of South Carolina beaches from all over the state. And I was told that it was the best attended meeting that they've had so far out of their 9 meetings, with over about 200 people. And of course, there were government officials, staff engineers, scientists, contractors, and a lot more people like us, I guess. And I was also told that it was not as dry and technical as many of their previous meetings with bar graphs and all that stuff. So I found it interesting. There was lots of information about beach nourishment, planning, funding, and also that there's a new South Carolina Department of Resilience whose purpose is to anticipate, absorb, recover, and thrive when presented with environmental hazards, whatever they may be. I thought it was interesting that in 1988, the beachfront management plan was to retreat and not rebuild when dealing with erosion problems. But now this has been replaced by preservation, with OCRM when dealing with erosion. More renourishment has replaced retreat and not rebuilding close to the ocean, which I was a little bit disappointed that now, they're not going to keep people from rebuilding close to the ocean. But at least there's still restrictions on new seawalls and other armoring of the coast, which, as we know, is very damaging to the coastline. My last thing was an interesting takeaway from Desiree's presentation was at the last OCRM survey, 70 houses or structures were seaward of the OCRM setback line on the Isle of Palms, with only 4 or 5 on really erosional beaches at Folly and Edisto. And then I started thinking, and I asked Desiree, where are those houses? And she said, well, mostly in Wild Dunes at Beechwood East and some on Ocean Boulevard. And I thought, well, that was before the 2018 renourishment project in Wild Dunes. So I assumed that now it's nothing like that 70 houses in violation of the setback line. Does that sound right to you? What?
So that is the city has the landmark Lucas case that tested OCRM's, basically their ability to regulate on the ocean front. The way that all kind of ended up happening was at the end of the day, OCRM established a line that in the vicinity of Beechwood East, Dunecrest, that line is up at the road. So the entire lot is seaward of their jurisdiction. But because of that, those property owners have to go through the additional step of building permits of going through OCRM. But they have a whole section of their code of laws that tells them how big it can be, that it has to line up. So it's not that they were built in violation, it was built with a permit from OCRM. But there are entire neighborhoods that are seaward of that setback line.
And they still are sort of in violation because they haven't moved the line? The line is still back there?
That line is statutorily set at the seaward most part of the shoreline in the last, it's either 40 or 50 years.
Oh.
So they are constantly mapping that line, that shoreline, and if the shoreline is ever receded to a point, they document that point, and then that becomes their baseline for the next 50 years. So even though it builds, they keep record of how far in it came, and that forever
Within the 50 years.
Within the 40 or 50 years. Wild Dunes is an interesting, and it interests me because I deal with it, but
Yeah.
you can actually see where houses built up to the line and the line has the effect of pushing people back. But once the line gets so restrictive that you cannot use the property, OCRM makes the judgment that they're either going to buy the lot, which is what they had to do in the Lucas case. They had to buy Mr. Lucas's lot, or they're going to permit that owner to build a house. So you can see the development line where it creeps back, skinny houses, and then all of a sudden you get to a lot that was so narrow that it could not possibly be built on without their permission, and they grant permission from there down the shoreline.
Have they ever bought somebody's property in
The
Wild
Lucas,
Dunes?
yeah, they did it for
Besides that one, the test
no,
case.
That one
That
taught
was
them
it.
the lesson, the expensive lesson that they didn't want to be in their lawyers were advising that they could keep somebody from building on their property and not buy the lot. And they lost that case. So it was deemed to be a takings, so they had to buy the lot. They resold it,
Yeah.
it eventually was, they were kind of made whole. I don't think it was awful, but it established the premise that a city or a state cannot completely take all benefit or use of a property unless they pay you for it. So it's basically like an eminent domain situation where if the highway department needs your property, they can take it. They have that right to take it, but they just have to repay you for it. So the OCRM wanted to be out of the business of doing that. So since the Lucas case, that's when they began issuing permits and authorizing construction beyond those lines.
Okay, thank you for explaining all that. It was confusing to me
Yeah.
at the meeting, that's why I
For
wrote
whatever
it
reason,
down.
that stuff interests me, and I would go on for hours about it. I mean, it is,
Didn't you go
Interests
to
me
the Supreme
too.
Court?
Yeah.
especially, I went to the Supreme Court,
US Supreme Court.
US Supreme Court. And it
Wow.
is the landmark zoning case in America. I mean, you hear about the Lucas case, all over America. It was the big
When was this?
late 80s.
Okay.
So it was, and it's on Beechwood East. It's the super modern. So just, to continue the story.
The brown
Any-
wooden square one,
big
that's the
brown-
lot?
That is
Yeah.
that's the
I know
lot.
that house.
When we have a hurricane and we go assess damage
Uh-huh.
to structures on the beach, the first lot we go to see how bad is it? It's that lot.
Mm.
We go and and the ocean is up under it. It's in the road. The kind of premise has bared out to be accurate, that it probably, from an environmental standpoint, didn't make a lot of sense to build there because they've constantly had to kind of rebuild and reinforce and put it back. It's taken a lot of public resources, a lot of private resources. So it's,
You can still see that black non-compliant sand that they used, I guess it was after Hugo, sometimes at Beechwood East. Not right now, but when it gets eroded
yeah, we
down,
see it all.
it's bad stuff.
Yep.
Now they monitor it more carefully, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did anybody else have any comments?
I've got two quick things
Okay.
about the conference, where most of us were there, but I'd like to get, just for the record, as kind of a summary. Mary covered so many of the things that were important to our city in particular. But in an overarching sense, there are two things that I think struck me. Is one, there were a lot of legislators and elected officials at the meeting. Governor McMaster was there, Nancy Mace showed up. There was a legislative panel with Chip Campson and some of the other state legislators. And of course, there were a lot of mayors and councilmen. I think John Bogosian was present there too. So my point is that I think all of these environmental issues that we've been talking about are definitely on the radar of our elected officials and our government. And the other thing that struck me, there were municipalities and communities from Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina represented, and there was a very collaborative spirit to share things that had worked for some communities or grants they were able to achieve for some of the same things Isle of Palms is working on. And I just think that's, again, a sign that our environmental concerns are not just here on our own barrier islands, but there's a lot to learn from the interaction with the other communities. So thanks.
And the next meeting's going to be at North Myrtle Beach, so it won't be quite so easy for us.
Yeah,
We'll send Douglas.
Yeah, they do. They come to this area. They kind of alternate locations, so they'll be back.
What about Hilton Head? Did they ever go there?
I don't recall. I think it goes between. I think we're close enough to Hilton Head that they just have it here. So
good.
they've done it in Kiowa.
Last year was Kiowa.
But it kind of goes back and forth between Myrtle Beach and the Charleston area. So we'll continue to make that conference available to you all if you have interest in attending. Future ones, it's always been interesting. So
Douglas, did you have anything that you wanted to report on with regards to the sea level rise adaptation RFP?
just that it's out. We talked about it a little bit last time. It's out on the streets. We've gotten a lot of good responses. A lot of questions about it that we've responded to. which is part of that RFP process, and they are due back, I think, the end of next week. So we will get proposals. The plan now is for the Planning Commission, as they did with the Drainage Master Plan, they have kind of a grading process that they'll go through in an interview process. But I'll forward everybody the proposals so you can see and just keep you in the loop. But that is one, and that we have known there is money in the budget for it, and I think it's only $20,000 in the budget. I think we've been hearing pretty consistently that it will not be, it won't be it would be a very high level plan at that funding level. So I do think we'll be faced with a decision of either increasing the budget some amount to do a kind of deeper dive, or leave it as a very high level type plan. So those will be the next steps. We'll review them, kind of analyze the budget, the bang for the buck, and what level we want to proceed at.
Do you know how much flexibility there is in the budget? Like, because right now it's 20,000.
There's endless flexibility as long as the council
Sure.
council
'Cause
agrees.
I work in the offices sometimes at Biohabitats, which is an ecological engineering firm. And I chat briefly with Keith Bowers, who's the founder, about it. And he seemed to think that with the scope that we were looking for, 40,000 would be more appropriate. And of course, 20,000 would be a possibility for something that's just less than what we're looking for.
Right.
Yeah, so.
I think 40,000 is within the realm of possibilities, but don't tell my bosses I talked to them.
Right, sure.
Well, I mean, I think I've also been in conversations with the Sea Grant Consortium group. They haven't offered to partner on it, but it could be that they would be a willing partner. They did partner with the city of, or the county of Beaufort on theirs. So I think if the budget needed to be more than it is, I think we could find a way to make that happen.
A Sea Grant collaboration would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, last but not least, we wanted to have a conversation with Chandra. Chandra?
Like
Okay.
cha-cha-cha, she tells me.
Okay, and to see if you have any suggestions for our group as far as communication and best practices to get information out to individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At a microphone somewhere.
And I would just say, for the benefit of the group, that
Chandra, you can sit right here if you want to talk.
that we have basically in our offices identified the items that we would like for Chandra to look at and analyze and come up with strategies for, and she's responded back kind of on a case by case. You know, this issue could take that tact, and I'm guessing that's probably the way that
Yes.
that this we would tell her the issue to publicize, and she would kind of find the method to do that.
Yes, come up with the game plan and the different channels that we can reach out to.
I can't hear you, honey.
I said come up with a game plan and the different channels to release that information to the public.
So
just send-
you're saying it would be individualized based upon,
Yes, what you need sent out, just send that over. Right now, you can just send it via email, send what you need, and then we'll work together to figure out the best way to get that out.
so would you guys like to have us run this by you first before, like if we wanted to do an article for Island Eye News, would you like for us to run that information by you first, or kind of send you a rough draft and
Yes, that would be
give you
great.
an opportunity to respond to it and make some changes or what have you? Okay.
Yes,
Okay. All right. And what are your thoughts on social media?
specifically, what do you mean?
For like getting information out about things like composting. I'm kind of conflicted about social media, especially some of the sites that I've seen and visited. There's a lot of negative things that are on there, and I don't know that I want to be a part of that particular group, but there are, sometimes somebody will post a picture of a sunrise, and that's kind of nice, so I don't know if it's all, it's not all negative, but it does kind of feel overwhelmingly on the sort of negative side.
It's why I got off Facebook, actually, with the Isle of Palms venom.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Nextdoor in particular?
No, it's not
or
next
what?
door. It's a Facebook, Isle of Palms Facebook neighbor. I can't tell you the name right now.
From kind of a higher level, I can say that the city has historically, I think initially when social media was kind of newer, there was advice given to cities of, hey, stay above kind of the fray of social media and watch what you say, it'll be misconstrued. So there was this kind of natural tendency to not participate in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that the city has learned that really to get information out in today's age, you have to use it. And so, I mean, that was a big part of bringing Chandra on board, was having somebody pretty well dedicated to using it. So I think it would be primarily through the Facebook or through the city's official channels. So I mean, it wouldn't be participating like Nextdoor in a way, but it would be the city's. I guess we use the city's website, Facebook,
Yes,
Instagram. So those
So when you
official
say that
channels
the-
would be our means to push information out. So I would
So
say
the website, you're talking about the website?
through the website and those social media accounts, the city's accounts.
Okay, and so I've seen the police department has one, the fire
That's-
department has one.
We have not really had one, but that's what Chandra's going to do.
Okay,
I mean, we
okay.
have one. It hasn't been widely
Okay.
as widely publicized as those departments, but that is what she would do.
Okay.
So I would say that this group identify, kind of, for example, this composting forum, and a good one was and continues to be the Fisher Recycling Program.
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing that kind of we started, didn't really have a super organized way of getting that message out. We relied on Fisher Recycling and but going forward, the plan would be, you will identify the need, Chandra would identify the method to carry that out. And I think it'll be slightly different based on, the intended audience, what the goal is, but that's how, as a staff, we have kind of looked at it. We would identify what it is that we want to publicize, give it to her, and she figures it out from there.
Specifically, we've talked before too, and I know it's late, so I'll just make it quick, but I guess from what you're saying, that the website would be under Chandra's
Really, the social media.
umbrella, but for those of us that don't use, we've talked about links on the website, for example, native plants, and maybe an update on wildlife and so forth, and that would be in Chandra's wheelhouse too, if there are other things that we could link to through the website, right?
That's something we could explore. Currently, it's under news, like, for example, the composting event. So news, and then, like you said, having those tabs dedicated towards that, for that information as well.
Thank you.
I'd say in terms of the things that we discussed at this meeting that we could use social media help on, what comes to mind is the composting and the adopt a drain as the two citizen involvement items. I say those two would be great ones to push on social media. I guess initially this compost session that's being held on the 25th, and then after that, just letting folks know, hey, this exists. It's an easy sign up. And all the reasons why it's good, and I can actually help with that. If you just need information on the benefits of composting and whatnot.
And I would add to that the glass recycling. There are
Yeah.
still people who
Yes.
don't know.
Yeah, so there's the waste drop-off station in general. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes the Island Eye doesn't get delivered to the houses, in my neighborhood. It just doesn't happen. And they have a hard deadline tomorrow, so I guess it's kind of late to put anything in unless somebody wants to do something tonight.
Yeah, well, maybe if we don't get the compost buy-in we want or the Fisher buy-in we want, we just push for something in Island Eye down the line.
But
Yeah.
wasn't it mentioned that they're trying to keep this first, not have that many people come to this first meeting?
I think it's that,
workshop?
I think it's that we want you to go
On the 25th.
to the workshop before you start using it. So
Oh, yeah.
I do think we want, well, it's limited to 25, so I think we only have 25 more spaces. But I do think we would want, we're going to need more than 50 people to be utilizing it. So what, and I actually didn't realize it could also just be done online until Belvin told me, so.
But you don't get your free bucket, right?
No, need that free bucket.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that would be good to continue to work to get that out. Yeah,
Yeah. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move the meeting be adjourned.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Off record at 5:16.
Thank you.
thank you all.
Good meeting. Thank you.
I didn't